Hi, I'm Adrian Bowles of Storm Insights. I recently had the opportunity to talk to Rainer Zinow of SAP at TechEd in Las Vegas. We had a great chat about the importance of cloud solutions for mid-market firms. Here are some of the highlights of that conversation.
Mid-market companies are typically the hidden champions in the world economy. They pretty often run relatively small companies, but they need the same capabilities that the large multinationals need. They need the multi-currency, the multi-taxation, the multi-ledger capability. And in the past, for many of these companies, having a full-blown SAP solution was just too expensive. So the equity position, they rather wanted to spend it on a new machine or on something else. But with cloud computing and with the subscription-based model, they can now simply show it as expenses. Therefore, it is much easier for these companies to buy a solution like Business by Design, and that really creates the demand for this kind of solution. We built Business by Design since 2004, and we built it specifically with the idea of a mid-market company in mind. So we needed a solution easy to implement, easy to use, easy to deploy. That is easy to say, but very difficult to accomplish. So what we did was we built, for example, one consistent user interface across all applications. And that is what the mid-market customers tell us today. They say, in our company, the person who's doing this today will step in for the colleague who's on vacation tomorrow to do the same thing. So simply the promise that, for example, a list in the application always behaves the same way, whether you're in human resource management, in CRM, or in financials. That is an important thing for them to have. Therefore, that is why we built by design specifically for the mid-market companies to be used from the cloud so that they don't need to have people in-house to do all of the technical stuff. We can do that in the background. And that is why we see such a demand for Business by Design. Well, as you rightfully said, it is still a market in development, so it is not yet cut in stone. The fast movers are actually the professional services companies. They see the need for a better infrastructure, also because they're working in a highly competitive environment. So they need complete transparency about how's my project doing, how's the staffing situation doing, how's my cost situation doing relative to my revenue situation. So they have the greatest need. You can also see a difference in geography. The US market is the furthest ahead, probably 2 to 3 years ahead of Europe. Within Europe, the UK is the closest to the US. Okay, there you have the cultural proximity. Then comes the rest of Europe, and Asia is, I would say, another 2 to 3 years behind. Very interesting part in Asia, Australia is about as fast as the UK when it comes to adopting cloud solutions. So different speeds in a young market, but in a fast-growing market. If government is, let's call it, involved in the data streams, they are much more willing to accept a statement like, hey, it's about security, whereby in Europe we are very adamant about the fact that this is my data. And I want to be completely in control. I don't mind to share my data, but I want visibility into this process. So what actually makes cloud probably more difficult in the future is that we get a lot of legislation in different parts of the world on how do you have to operate a cloud service. I recently met with the European Commission, and they're about to publish a European Data Privacy Act, which now calls for the support that you give to a customer must be delivered out of Europe. And I asked them, well, in my case, for Business by Design, the real product experts are all located in India and not in Germany. So do we want to serve our European customers now second best? So that's a difficult discussion. We have same discussions in China, we have same discussions in Russia. I hear that we will also have the same discussion in Brazil in the foreseeable future. So That will not make it easier for us, but we have to follow where our customers go. And the legal issues pretty often, at least in Europe, stem from, let's say, the 70s. And pretty often when we discuss data privacy, we draw the analogy to who is allowed to open a letter. And in Europe, there are very strict regulation. Yes, a judge can order that somebody can check a letter, but there are a couple of barriers in between until that can happen. The second aspect is we have a lot of professions who've given themselves their own regulatory standards, like, for example, the chartered accountants, where they are very adamant and they go way beyond what the legislation calls for when it comes to protecting your customers' data. I'm working with a couple of very large auditing firms, and for them it is absolutely mandatory to know precisely where the data resides, under which legal framework the data can be accessed. They ask a lot more challenging questions than, for example, I'm working a lot with the Australian government, and my largest customer is the Department of Trade and Investment in Australia, who have all of their budget data actually in my data center in Germany. So that varies greatly. When it then comes to the topic of big data and can we slice and dice the data in the way how we want to use it, that is then the easiest part of the equation. That is where companies typically have a business motivation, why they are asking certain questions, where they are also willing to share data, for example, in a benchmarking exercise. That is easier, but pretty often we have to have a step in between where we anonymize the data, so that you can't see, for example, who were the individuals involved, who were the customer involved. But mostly when we do big data analysis, we do pattern matching. We search for certain patterns in the data, and there we don't need to drill down to the individual sentence or to the individual record. It is more a question of, do we recognize certain correlations, certain dependencies that we want to use? Good. Well, the topics that you mentioned, basic analytics, advanced analytics, predictive analytics, they are equally relevant for the mid-market. The mid-market is asking exactly the same questions. But let's not fool ourselves. The interest is there, definitely, but we need a new generation of data analysts who are trained to apply the right method. And not to try and calculate in advanced statistical methods when your base set contains 6 records. So the interest is there. The ability to apply the methods, I don't think so. So there we need to work, and we need to work a lot, and SAP does that with universities to train a new generation of data analysts. And then we can really be successful in a few years from now. I would recommend that you go shopping for these kind of data analysts. There are specialized firms already out there who can help you with that, and you bring them in. Like, you need 3 hours predictive analytics, you may need 2 or 3 days with these experts to receive this as a service. When it comes to natural language processing, that's something we're waiting for quite a long time. We've seen significant advances. Most of us, when we're going on the German Autobahn and still have to do an SMS, we do it via Siri these days, which is really a massive step forward security-wise. But also there, I would say, the technical capabilities are there. We now need to learn how to use them properly and in which scenario to use them properly.